Marguerite Rigoglioso, welcome to the Stand, Speak, Shine podcast.
Thank you, Sherry. It's so nice to be here.
I'm
Can't
gonna
wait to begin.
I just like you and I talked yesterday, and I'm still vibing from that. And I know you just got finished doing a teaching and you're vibing from that. Well, anyway, I'm so glad we've connected. I told you I've been fangirling on you for like 6 months. And I'm like, I'm going to ask her to be on my podcast. So I'm going to introduce to our listeners your background, and then we'll dive right into this fascinating topic about goddess and sacred feminine spirituality and Mary Magdalene. So you are a Ph.D. philosophy, religion, and humanities, a foremost authority on the history of virgin birth, and the author of the bold new award-winning book, The Mystery Tradition of Miraculous Conception, Mary and the Lineage of Virgin Births. So fascinating. You've taught many graduate and undergraduate courses in the US and in the UK, and in 2012 founded your own Seven Sisters Mystery School, which I love. And you've been teaching about the sacred feminine and mentoring clients on the evolutionary spiritual path. You're also the author of Virgin Mother Goddesses of Antiquity and the Cult of Divine Birth in Ancient Greece.
Yes.
And we'll talk to our listeners about how they can find you online and all that when we're kind of wrapping up. But welcome. Yes. So let's go into how this path found you. How did you become this pioneering priestessy? How did this path of the sacred feminine goddess spirituality find you?
Yeah. I think it found me prior to this lifetime. I mean, I am a believer in reincarnation. Some people may, some believe that, some people may not, but that's my reality.
Yeah.
And it feels true to me. And so what I came in with in this lifetime was some things to clear, some things to remember, and a mission to fulfill. And that I really got instigated into that through the death of my mother when I was 10 years old. She had lupus, and she, her body just degenerated, and she left her body. And I was left with the death mysteries at that age, and also a lot of trauma to heal from that, and it not being handled well, and things that happened afterward. So I just, I think I was always a very strong personality. I was always really strong in school. And I also had kind of a mystical flair. So put them all together. And in my 20s, I started in on my healing path. And it soon took me into some of the shadow sides of Christianity. And then it took me into an understanding of that there was a sacred feminine component to reality, that there were traditions and histories and cultures dedicated to this. And I said, I want more. And I started reading and studying and going to sacred groups, eventually studying in grad school in women's spirituality, and then becoming a teacher of this. And that's kind of the short story of it all.
Yeah. Well, I love that you said yes, because I know you help a lot of people. For me personally, you've been very validating in some of the things that have come through you, and just your confidence with it. I think that's what strikes me. So let's move into what those words mean. Goddess. I ask a lot of my interviewees about this, but what does goddess mean to you, and what is sacred feminine spirituality?
Yeah. Goddess is the divine in the yin valence, the feminine valence. And I do think that there is a reality in which the goddess is the supreme creator being, sometimes called Mother Divine, sometimes called Shakti, sometimes called Great Mother, whatever.
Sophia.
And Sophia, right? And she is sort of the cosmic universal creator essence being from which we all emanate. And I've been exploring that universe quite a bit. And so she has other kinds of manifestations that sort of trickle down from that. And some of the many goddesses that we've heard of, including Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, and so forth. So this is an essence, it's an energy, it's a series of kind of personalities that you can also access. Mother Earth is a manifestation of this sacred feminine beingness, and women and men have aspects of it. We can access it, we can express it, we can communicate with it, we can cultivate it within ourselves and among ourselves. And it's a force that is wanting to be brought back onto planet Earth and into our lives, to come back into balance with the masculine, with the yang energies that have kind of had a bit of control takeover
You could say
over
that.
the last few thousand years. What's that?
I said you could say that.
Yeah, you know. So we're it's about feminine now coming back into balance, being restored, understood rightfully as an essence of the divine, if not, you know, the great creatrix herself. And then it's all sacred feminine spirituality is all about, well, what do we do with that?
Yeah.
How do we communicate with her, for her, from her, within her, for what effects in our lives?
A lot of us had to give ourselves some hard fought permission to explore this, because it's always been male God, male Jesus. Like I love the concept of God, of the Father and Jesus, and you know, all of the, you know, beautiful male, sacred male, let's just say leaders, or the deity, the presence. So let's talk about how that's different and why it's been demonized, why sacred feminine spirituality was obscured, let's say, and then demonized and just eradicated, and why it's making a comeback now.
Yeah, well, as I see it, it's about the takeover by the patriarchy of the planet, and really of the cosmos, because we see the same takeover story, the suppression or the rape of the feminine, the women, the goddesses, and so forth, both in the mythological stories, like almost all over the world, as well as on the earth. And in our earth histories, we've seen the gradual takeover by the patriarchal forces, which we might equate with male, but there's something under that. You know, there's an energy under it that is not necessarily male in nature. It's just the force that has taken hold of the masculine or the yang energies in our reality and kind of twisted them out of control and out of proportion. And then those have gone to work suppressing the feminine, because, you know, for them, like sucking off the feminine is like a power source for them.
Yes.
And so we've seen this play out, but it's not really the fault of human men. Human men are kind of the pawns of this process, of this agenda, as much as anyone. And so it's we have to understand, what is that sacred feminine? Because like you're saying, she's been so disappeared from most of our religious stories and our realities. And she is essential. She is critical for our emotional, psychological, and physical well-being, as much as for our spiritual well-being.
Yeah. What do you think the fear is, let's just say from patriarchal constructs or religions, about centralizing the feminine? Like what is that fear about, in your estimation?
Well, the feminine energy is so powerful that it gives those other energies a run for their money, and it's inconvenient for them to be in a position of power and in a position of getting their food source met and all that sort of thing. So they just kind of want it out of the way. And this is just a great drama that's going on our planet and in our universe, in perhaps all of reality, that we're really awakening to again in a big way over the last 40 years. I mean, in postmodern culture, if you will, but these goddesses have been around in all of our indigenous cultures, if we go back far enough, in every culture. So it's about a restoration of something that was taken away, torn asunder. And again, we need this so badly for our well-being. We're shot to heck with trauma and addictions and all of these kinds of things because of this imbalance and the misuse of certain energies, you know, that have granted privilege to some degree to some of the males on the planet, but then again, they're as much trapped in it as anyone.
Right.
So
Right.
it really goes beyond the humans, male, female.
Yeah, I've seen how it's affected my husband and his father and his father and his father. I've seen how it's affected my father and his father and his father and my sons.
Yeah.
And I think, raising quote unquote feminist sons who are now in their 20s. I have one that's almost 11. And and how the conversations are really changing with this Gen Z around,
Yeah.
the Barbie movie, let's just say, that just came out, and just it's up in the consciousness. It's
Yeah.
finally up in the consciousness, which was reflective of, Hollywood and social media. Um, so I can see it could also turn to a shadow state if we're not, again, if we're not careful, because, and when you and I talked yesterday, because you're helping to guide my book writing process, which I am so grateful for. We talked about like not coming in with this energy of divisiveness and, burn burn down the patriarchy. Well, that's not,
Yeah.
that's not productive. It's not going to move the needle.
Right. Right. And, I mean, I've been a warrior for decades, probably lifetimes. So I do understand that energy and that rage that is a fuel to get this whole movement going. And we don't want to just say, oh, masculine bad, feminine good, because there's positive and negative in everyone. And each of us coming to terms with our own personal shadow, as well
Yeah.
as our collective shadow, is part of this soul growth movement and work. So it's really not about pointing fingers, but it's about taking responsibility inwardly where we can and drawing attention to it outwardly, in a way that, again, is not fomenting warfare. It
Mhm.
is speaking truth to power, as the phrase goes, but it's not agitating in a way that is just going to create another distraction from the real work. The warfare can become a distraction for the real work that has to happen,
Yeah.
which is the integration, which is the healing. And again, this is not just about, oh, turning into nicey nice women who are like, oh yeah, and we're just gonna heal the patriarchy one cell at a time. And it's just, no, I
Is
mean,
that
it's
okay? I'm
about,
sorry. Like,
right. And I'm sorry I'm even doing this, but it's more about like bringing that sword into balance, right? With the womb, the
yeah.
chalice and the blade. That's what we're doing here.
That egalitarian culture and society. It's not about a matriarchy. That's
Right.
why it's like, okay, so I want to bring in Mary Magdalene because I know she's been a fascination of yours, and you've dove into a lot of academic research and sacred texts and esoteric traditions. I want to know your latest and greatest on Mary Magdalene in terms of, well, let me just preface this by saying, like, she was her energy, her archetype, her essence, and exactly how you talked about the goddess mother. That's how Mary Magdalene's essence came in to emancipate me. You could say put me on the path of liberation, sacred feminine liberation. And it's been quite the journey the last 5 years. But um, lately, I'm just like feeling like she was like a stepping stone. She was an
Yeah.
integral piece, and she's pointing to something deeper. And I'm
Mhm.
curious.
Well,
For
she's
me,
a
it's just
stepping
been about
stone. She's a stepping stone to you.
exactly. I was gonna say it was like sovereignty. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
it's kind of like, is this all right? Because I what I was raised in,
Yeah.
autonomy and inner authority. What are you feeling now about her? Like, well, whatever you want to share about how she found you
Yeah.
and how she's coming through for you.
Yeah. I found her through the good old Catholic Church as a child. She was discussed at Easter time, and some progressive priest had a foot washing ritual and all that. And, it moved me, the whole thing about her being at the cross and this, that, and the other thing. And it was like a little breath of fresh air that would come about once a year that caught my interest. So fast forward to, I was jumped into the goddess movement, the sacred feminine movement, started taking year-long programs and learning from some of the masters of the the sacred feminine movement, for, several years of that. But toward the beginning of it, we were introduced to Mother Mary as sacred feminine goddess, and Mary Magdalene as kind of like priestess on her way to goddess, is how I interpreted her. That was also the time that Margaret Starbird came out with her book, The Woman with the Alabaster Jar, still a classic,
Yes.
still the foundational text for understanding Mary Magdalene. She broke the door open with that.
Absolutely.
Right. And I came to know her and teach her material. So it was like my entryway was always a little bit on the academic side. So I would start teaching the material, but of course it started working on me personally. And I started, as I went deeper into this teaching, on the mystical level. And then, in one of my first plant medicine ceremonies that I did, using sacred medicine, Mary Magdalene's energy came in, and I realized that she knew all about the underworld that I was being led to study and explore, experientially and so forth. So she kind of appeared in a medicine ceremony of mine. And then I just started developing this deeply personal relationship with her. And I realized, oh, you can do that. You can do that with any god, goddess, ascended master, whatever you want to call them, the fairies and so forth. And so for a while, for quite a number of years, I really felt like she was my sister, my sacred sister. Then when when Claire Hartsong's books came out,
what is that?
Anna, Grandmother of
I
Jesus,
love that one.
and Anna, Voice of the Magdalens, I realized, oh, there is a holy order of the Magdalens. I am part of that just by my sovereign declaration as such. And I began to, live from that perspective. And then Mother Mary came into my life in a much more energetic way. And, we can talk about that. So I have been primarily dwelling with Mother Mary for quite a number of years, but of late this year, I joined back with both of them so that I am exploring the path of the Mary Magdalene.
So beautiful. And, you're familiar with that phrase, the call of the Magdalene, how she'll, like, you feel this draw, it's inexplicable. Like, why am I so obsessed and drawn in? And here is what this, and a lot of people, it was messy at first because I was just reading everything and channelings and this and that. But what it's really come to me now is exactly what you referenced. She's pointing back to me and saying, just as Jesus did, the kingdom of heaven is within you, ye are gods. Thank goodness those two phrases made it past the Council of Nicaea into the New Testament, right? But this wisdom tradition of everything being within you, and it's just a matter of accessing it and clearing the ego states so that we can show up as sovereigns. And for me, that's what religion does not want.
Yeah.
They do not want sovereigns.
No, they don't want sovereigns.
Neither does the government. Neither does academia.
No, because of the forces that are underneath them that are kind of controlling the works. Okay. And so that's another whole area that if people care to look at the underworld, they can.
Yeah.
So, this is what we're all up against. It's really about doing this deep healing, this deep personal healing work. And that's what these masters, goddesses, gods, Mary, Magdalene, Jesus, and others in the Holy Family were all about. It was helping us through our human healing so that we could re-access our divine unification and be operating from that place the way humans, I believe, once did on the planet and will do so again after this great drama that has gone on with us.
I keep thinking, how long does this play out on the universal cosmic stage? At what point? I mean, part of me feels so much exhaustion around, oh my gosh, I don't want to keep incarnating and dealing with this, right? Like, I don't want to revisit things. And even in this lifetime, it's just like, when is this going to let up? When is this going to break? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah. Well, I think what it's about is you contribute to the shifting of that the more you deeply go into your own experience of it and your own being able to walk the talk and manifest these energies,
Mhm.
whatever that takes, which it takes a lot right now. It can take like 3 hours of meditation, or whatever, maybe working in an accelerated way with plant medicine or something
Right.
like that. It's like what our business really is the log in our own eye and how we can manifest that light within, that Christ Sophia within,
Mhm.
because that starts shifting our own life so that we're not even so worried about what's going on around us. And then we are transmitting that energy to others who benefit from it and can start making their own shifts and so forth. So this is what I'm receiving in the moment, is that is a very useful way to go about this thing and to look at it, and it prevents the burnout and the exhaustion from like, oh my God, I have to keep running and doing my warrior ministry and to get this going and to get this changing. No, what you're doing, what you're saying is enough. It's sufficient unto the day, and just let it go out there and keep shifting your reality.
Yeah.
Keep moving into the life that you want for yourself. And because despite what's being projected out in media images and so-called news and things so-called going on,
I don't even look at the
yeah, I
news.
don't go there. You can really have a different reality within yourself, and you can
Yeah.
manifest a different reality around you. Like we just went through 3 years where some people had one reality, some people had another.
I was never more focused and deliberate about my path as I was during COVID.
That's right. And I mean, I had a great upswell in people being interested in the things that I've been sharing. Um, and now we're kind of all, ooh, going back to whatever we're going back to, but on a new rung of the spiral. Um, and this acceleration is continuing to happen both individually and collectively. So all we can do is just do what we can and worry, know that we're contributing to the positive timeline and
Yeah.
the accelerated timeline that we can all feel is happening because our lives are so intense right now. That's a
Mhm.
manifestation of the accelerated timeline.
I love that.
Yeah.
I think part of that burnout I feel is I just care so much about humanity, and I have so many close loved ones who struggle, and
Yeah.
friends, and I see the pain, and I feel sometimes when I'm in sacred plant medicine or when I'm meditating, I feel this Christ sorrow of humanity. I feel that,
Yeah.
I can tap into it, let's just say at will now, and
Yeah.
tap back out.
Yeah.
But that's what I wrestle with on my own cosmic soul level in
Yes.
my own path. And I don't want it to go. I don't want that um, compassion to preclude me. I want to stay with it, but I don't want to live in it anymore. I marinated in it for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know what we can do is we can give that to Blessed Mother to take
Mm,
for us, because she is the one who hears the cries of the world and weeps for it. And she is goddess, so she has the strength to just transmute that. She can take it
mm,
and transmute it, take it off our shoulders, and then we can do our work with greater ease. And then sometimes going through that experience of feeling the world's pain is an initiation. It
yeah.
is an initiation into some aspect of what Divine Mother is doing for us. And we learn from it. And then we're like, okay, I'm ready to release that lesson. Thank you. Right. So we don't have to always stay with things. We stay with them for as long as we receive their medicine. And then we don't want to have them overstay. We need to know when to release that illusion and
Mhm.
move on to the next illusion, which is going to give us medicine.
Yeah. That's so relevant that I need to hear. And it reminds me of, and I know we have a mutual friend, Angela de la Agua. She's an incredible priestess who lives in Joshua Tree. And one of the things that she and I work through together is this old paradigm of you have to suffer, you have like
Yeah.
if you open your voice and become this, let's just say, way shower of the way of love, or a cosmic consciousness leader, that you're going to die, they're going to crucify you, they're going to
That's right.
ridicule you and mock you. And I didn't realize I held that belief literally so deep in my DNA that it was keeping me from stepping forward. It's funny, stand, speak, shine, but like I couldn't even stand or speak. My feet were hurting. I was getting plantar fasciitis, all of these things, thyroid, because I had this deep existential fear of
Yeah.
stepping into using my voice, because maybe past lifetimes, I don't know, but it is definitely part of this collective suffering idea that if you speak up, you will die, you will be
That's right.
crucified.
That is a messaging, a program missile that is sent out quite a bit in our reality and
Mm,
on the earth plane. It packs a punch because it plucks the strings of our memories of lives in which we have died in those ways. And I get a lot of clients who, have to clear that so
witch
that they can
wound.
move forward. Yeah, the witch wound, a lot of times it's around the throat chakra, but it can be around other chakras. And so we're just in the process of clearing all that so that we can free ourselves and really strengthen and then become co-creator beings.
When you and I talked yesterday, you shared that you get a lot of haters that don't really know the context of what your work is about. Maybe they're trying to play both sides or tear you down for whatever deep subconscious things they've got going on in their own lives. And you had some really good advice for me that way, because I'm, putting myself into a new season of my life where I'm becoming more vocal. I'm writing, I'm opening up some shadows that are that I would have preferred to keep the lid on, to be honest, but they beckon for me to expose and look at. So
Yeah.
do you want to share with our listeners what you do when you get those haters and when that energy comes in to
That's
take them
right.
back?
That's right. What we were talking about was, well, they know, especially if you're a warrior, but even if you're not a warrior, you can get triggered, right? And these energies, these forces love to keep humans distracted and occupied by sending them things that will make them take the bait,
Hmm.
stir you up, get you all agitated, and then get into a fight or an argument or a war and get all distracted. And so the healing path is to get to the place where you know what your triggers are, you know what your wounds are, you know how to gather them to yourself, soothe them so that you're not allowing them to get agitated when something comes into your space. Like somebody, even who you like or is well-meaning, all of a sudden is saying this, that, and the other thing, or accusing you of this and that. And let alone, somebody who is like a bona fide energy, enemy. So there are all these situations and people in our lives will be presented with the bait, the bait. Do I want to get into an argument or a destructive situation with this person, or am I going to like not take that bait? Am I going to not answer that text, not answer that email, or answer it with, a high level of, okay, I hear what you're saying. Thank you for sharing, your perspectives on that. I'll take it under advisement. There's different ways of responding or not responding where you're not taking the bait.
Yeah.
And then you're not getting into distraction and creating more karma that you then have to sop up with your mops and brooms.
I'm like a natural debater. Like I actually love confrontational, like just discussion in general. And I can't tell you how many times somebody's triggered me that they want to, take me on, and I start the conversation with, I'll bite, I'll
That's
bite. And
right.
I'm like, I don't need to bite.
No,
I don't need to take the bait like you're
no,
talking
no,
about.
no.
So,
And social media is the prime forum for that to happen. And everyone's then slugging it out, blah, blah, blah. So it's funny how I was saying take the bait and take the debate, because it's like bait leads to debate, which leads to warfare. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So yeah.
Well, and that's the thing. We don't need to choose camps. Mother is in all the camps.
Yes.
God is in all the camps. There's no
Yeah.
camps. We're just creating them, all this divisiveness. So I want to talk about this whole conceptual thing with Mary Magdalene, I've done multiple episodes on Mary, and there was this, well, I think it's changing and it's shifting in the consciousness a lot. But how she was perceived for so long as this repentant
Right.
prostitute or whore, whatever,
Right.
and what the truth is, what we
Right.
now know, it's just indisputable. I mean, from an intuitive, soul-based, embodied wisdom place in the feminine, when you really, access her. But even in those sacred texts, and I know you've studied a lot of them, why the old perception of her, and what is this new one? What is the age-old perception of her, and how has that shifted?
Yeah, the age-old perception, as you're saying, is she is equated with the woman in the New Testament who was a fallen woman, and Jesus was giving her attention and love or whatever, and other people were like, why are you doing that? She's a whore. They didn't use that language, but it's implied. And she's so sometimes Magdalene is equated with that woman, who's then equated with the woman who breaks the jar of nard either on Jesus's head or his feet, who's equated with Mary of Bethany, who sits and listens at his feet, who's equated with Mary Magdalene. So there's a long line of how this gets connected with Mary Magdalene in the texts. But the point is that at some point, the church that shall remain unnamed came up with that she was a prostitute. And then as I delve deeper into the histories around that and the priestesshoods around that area and that time frame, I realized even in the Hebrew Bible, there's talk of the Kadesha, the sacred sexual prostitutes in the temple. What does that mean? What were they doing? Who were they? They seem to be sexual tantric priestesses, and it looks like priests who would engage on some level of womb work in order to, on the spiritual plane, whether it was with themselves only or with a partner, or men who would come in or whatever. There was that tradition. And so what this idea that Mary Magdalene maybe was a prostitute may be hearkening back to that memory of the Kadesha, the sexual priestesses, of which Magdalene could have been one.
Okay.
There is interesting, if you follow the Gospel of Philip, you can find some evidence that she was connected in with Sophia, who was considered the whore and the Holy One. Magdalene was considered a manifestation of this very Sophia, who embodied both, because I think ultimately the whore was the Holy One. These were sacred hore priestesses, sacred sexual priestesses, that were utilizing those energies as part of their practice. So,
I just want to insert, just for listeners who might get triggered, they're like, oh my gosh, sexual priestesses. But what we're talking about is the sovereignty piece. And it may not be the actual sexual act as much as it is retaining that creative power and womb wisdom and sexuality. Like even the word virgin has been completely misconstrued. It's not about necessarily sexuality.
Right. What I found is there's a little array of things that go along with all that. So there are the virgins, meaning the sovereign women, who may have been celibate as part of it in order to retain their sexual energy for all of these sacred spiritual purposes they were doing with themselves. And then you have, so they could have been celibate virgins. And then on the other end of this womb spectrum of sexual priestessing, you have the tantrikas, or the hierosgamos, or sacred marriage priestesses, or the kadesha, who could have been using the sexual act to, at a very, very high level of light, in partnership with a male, to bring in a high holy level conception. But the virgins could also bring in conceptions. You see, at the highest levels, they knew how to do that. And the tantrikas knew how to do it at the very highest levels, to bring in a specialized individual who would help humanity. That was the
like
ultimate.
An avatar or a Christ.
An avatar,
Yep,
okay, like a Jesus, like a Mother Mary herself, like a John the Baptist, okay,
Mhm.
divinely born. Even Isaac and others within the Judeo tradition, let alone all around the world, there are these stories. And in ancient Egypt, it was the priestess who would consort with the pharaoh to engender the next pharaoh, who was a manifestation of the divine, right? So we are starting to understand, oh my gosh, there are so many facets to conception, how it's done, with what intention, and with what results,
Yeah.
both positive and negative.
It's interesting as I'm listening to you speak, when I was waiting for this last daughter to join our family, and I'd had visions and dreams and knew and felt her energy, looked just like my bio kids, lots of story around that. But I was called into as an adoptive mother, a prospective adoptive mother, because my eggs were not good enough to conceive another child, but I knew she was coming. So I actually worked with I don't know if she was a coach, but coach doesn't even describe what she did, but she talked about this divine conception, calling in a soul through through adoption and working with that. So for both of my last two children, Eli and Emma, who are both adopted by two separate private adoptions, and I can see as I look back how that was orchestrated in a way on some level about what you're talking about. It was like these souls, this certain lineage they wanted to come through, these, it was messy. It was very messy. It wasn't like the Immaculate Conception, let's just say.
Yeah.
But the light and the power and what I was learning through that it taught me more about creation during that time than anything in my entire life times 100.
Yes, yes, yes. And it's going back to also the ancient tradition of the birth mother, and then the surrogate mother, the priestesses who would raise these avatars. They weren't always the same women, The birth mother would then give the child over to be raised by these priestesses. It was a whole other thing. And
Interesting.
also, for those who take in adoptive children, those children have their own traumas. Sometimes they have a memory of the abandonment of the original mother or parents that then, needs to be healed and so forth. So there's lots of opportunity there for healing, not to mention
Yes.
the conditions under which they were conceived,
The
and
shame
the
and the
stress and the
yeah.
shame, and, all of that. So that has all gone into this child's timeline, right?
Mm.
But you're here to help with these two particular children to,
They decided to come in my 40s, so
yeah, they were a different soul
just like,
contract. They had a soul contract with their mother, and then they had a soul contract with you.
and I will say I can astutely feel their primal wound
Yeah.
of being adopted.
Yeah.
So we're working on that. We're looking at healing that.
Yeah.
Maybe that's
Because that's a big healing that has to happen retroactively for all of those children that were separated from their mothers through duress, through, unwilling control, all the shame, all of that type of thing that's gone on for hundreds of years, if not more. And that is a big wound that is wanting a healing, the taking the child away for whatever reason. And it's just part of this much larger agenda of controlling women's wombs, controlling and hijacking the birth and the child rearing practices. There's just so much that goes along with this.
And I can speak to that from personal experience, as you know, my
Yes.
history, that I was really, really put under some duress to place my child for adoption, my daughter, my firstborn, which I did, while also getting disfellowship from the church. And it's all going in my book, folks, or books.
Yeah.
But you're right. Like, I do believe I had a soul contract to do this. I'm not blaming or, it's just like the scarlet letter, all of that. I came here to learn. I came here to walk through and live. But yes, the feelings and the complexities that a woman in a quote unquote illegitimate pregnancy who comes from a religious background, it goes, like you said, way, way back. The patriarchy controls a lot of it. I found out through my research that um, that a lot of these places that unwed mothers, let's just say, were sent to homes where nuns were running them, and they called them, in Ireland, they called them Magdalene Asylums.
That's right, Magdalene Asylums. And they were really actually baby trafficking locations.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. This is the thing. It's all part of what Indigo Angel and I think Lisa Renee talked about, which is the forced breeding programs.
Mm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So on another level, you were forced bred, and then your child was given away. And then the same thing with these women in Ireland or wherever, where these orphanages or these, you know, incubation chambers where the woman is pregnant for the 9 months and then her baby goes to who knows what. This is part of the abuse that has gone on around women, around the womb, around the birthing, around the control of the production of the human race and so forth, that we have to look at much more deeply. And many of us are starting to do that. And yes, you have lived these things on both sides, right? So you're here to speak with authority about it and just say, okay, this whole thing, it benefits humanity for this whole thing to change. So how are we going to do that?
Mm-hmm. Right. And I think it will be women coming forward with their stories.
Yeah.
And having courage and feeling that divine support so that they're not tapping into that collective fear we referenced earlier with, like, something will happen to me if I speak up.
That's right. That's right. That's the greatest control,
you know,
and
it's actually very sinister. And I think people might think we're talking about, like, it's really strong language to talk about forced breeding, but like at the energetic level, that's what the siphoning feels like. It feels like it's part of your life force, is like, it's not your own, it's not your decision, it's coerced upon you because you're unworthy, or, you know, you need to be disassociated from the rest of the people until you learn your lesson, and that kind of thing. And that separation is really what we're talking about, is creating all of these problems.
That's right. That's right. And it started with the suppression of the sexuality to begin with, and the misguiding on it, so that you know, we have these situations where there are these strong sexual impulses that have to go somewhere, and when they're being suppressed, they usually will come out sideways in a person or in a tradition. And all sorts of distortions and twistings and unhealthiness are there. And that's what Magdalene is here to heal. What I have received, and I spoke a couple of days ago on another interview I was doing, that she is a sexual healer for humanity, for both women to claim their power and be able to use their sexuality in healthy ways as they see fit, and for men who want the kind of healing from the whore, the holy whore, because there's the tradition that, you know, the Venus priestesses, the Aphrodite priestesses were healing men coming home from war, healing over aggressive, over sexualized or under sexualized men. And so Magdalene can actually be here as a surrogate on the inner planes to do whatever level of healing people are asking for from her. And to my mind, that is the very manifestation of the sacred whore of Sophia, cosmically.
Yeah, Carolyn Myce's Archetypes, you're probably familiar with them, but she says we all have an inner virgin and an inner whore. We are all carrying that archetype.
Yeah.
And those polarities and that duality really are reflective in our culture, where we're not healing it within the person. And so it's coming out in all this, like the pornography and all these things,
Right.
you know, sex trafficking. And I want to touch back on what you said earlier about, you know, we don't have to buy into all these collective fears in the media. And, you know, let's just say there's so much medical mystery and there's just so much governmental, and it's an election year coming up and all of these things. And it's just pining for our, like, choose a side, choose a delegate, choose this, choose that, choose a church, choose it. You know, I think people are now just kind of waking up to, like, that's not the reality I want to play in. you mentioned like you are the center of your own universe. That doesn't diminish the creator or creatrix. It's just like you don't have to live in that fear-based reality. So what is your best way, Marguerite, for women, let's just say, who may be carrying some of those collective fears? Maybe they've been watching a little bit of too much news, or they're on social media scrolling too much and seeing all these debates going on. How would you have them call back their power, their wisdom, so that they can rest into that new reality of love and just, coming home to yourself?
Well, a lot of people are realizing that actually we are holographic manifestations of the divine. So it's not incorrect to say that we are divine, because we are like shimmering, if you've seen a hologram where there's the whole, but then the whole is replicated in the teeniest, tiniest parts of it. We're like those teeniest, tiniest parts of it. That's the manifestation of the whole. So once we start having that concept, we realize, oh my gosh, I essentially am divine. However, I just cut someone off in the parking lot and I'm having all this anger. And what do I do with all that? I got all these wounds, trauma, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, that's just stuff that you're here to heal and, release and all of that as a very part of this spiritual reclamation and this path of sovereignty and coming back into what it means to be a living, divine, walking divinity. Okay. So Mary and Magdalene and Jesus were just exemplars of that, but they wanted to show us what was within us. So, what you want to do, one recommendation is just to realize the illusory and fear-based nature of the media that is promulgating fears to keep you small, under wraps, under control, and diverted into a certain stream. So it requires releasing the addiction from the media, from the scrolling.
That's so hard.
It is hard.
Because I want to see what's going on in the world. Like I want my pulse.
Yeah, but it's not what's going on in the world. It's what's going on in
illusory,
artificially constructed version of the world, including on social media, which is always a curated version of a person's life.
Yes.
And work. So it's all illusion, because half the time you get under those people and you're like, holy crap, that marriage sucks. What are they doing? Like, 10, 20 gorgeous years with my beloved. And it's just like, oh man, cut the BS. All right. We're all in it together.
And you know what, Marguerite, I don't choose leaders to follow or listen to teachers who have not been through that initiation that we.
You got to be through your shadow. You got to know
and
what
you can tell.
you're and are capable of and have done, and get humble with it and then move on. And so, it's releasing the illusion of the media and then coming and finding some guides, principles, courses, or just plain inner work, working with the masters on your own inner planes, in your meditations, in your quiet time, asking for dreams, writing it down, and spending time, allowing enough time in a day to get calm and get some info for yourself, get some guidance. That's like the quickest and easiest way. And it doesn't even take gobs of hours. A half hour a day in the morning can serve you very well. And there's plenty of guided meditations and teachers out there. People can work with me, right? They can probably work with you. So these are just tidbits and suggestions for how to navigate this and how to come to be able to access your own greatness.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think it is really, really crucial to choose teachers who are not steeped in their own egoic, follow me, and disseminating teachings without saying, how does this land in you? Like, let me guide you to yourself. Kind of like we were talking about Magdalene, what she does is, and Jesus, they're pointing us back to us.
Yeah.
And even Jesus said that, and you have no idea how many biblical scriptures are in my head, but when Jesus said, greater things than you've seen me do, you will do, to his apostles.
That's right.
I'm like, what are you talking about?
I know. But no, he was like, look, you all have the divine angelic template within you, right? He's saying it. All the new age people are saying it. If you look back at any of the core essences of the religions, they're all
All the
saying,
mystical, yeah,
all the mystical traditions, like
angles
we've
of
been hearing this
yeah.
story again and again and again. So let's pay attention to it. And what does it really mean? Translate. Let's translate it. Let's get excited about all this, right?
Yeah. Instead of like not trusting yourself and second guessing yourself, that you can't be led, you can't be soul led, that, that they're capturing your, yeah, siphoning is a good word for that. I think that part of my work is around like stand in who you are, speak what comes from your heart and your womb space, and then just radiate that to the world. It sounds trite, but that's the work. The work is to just stand, be rooted in like you're here now.
That's right. And getting down to the womb teachings is really important. Understanding what the womb is physically, physiologically, energetically, cosmically, and then understand that there are traditions worldwide that can help you clear and access your power there. I teach one version of that, the Holy Womb Chakra teachings, which I learned from the Sri Kaleshwar lineage. And so, that's a mantra and sacred drawing system where you were led through a process, and it's kind of a magical thing. You will see results in your life, there are other people teaching other levels of this, and we need to get into our bodies as women. We need to get into our wombs. The wombs do matter. They are a power portal. They are a power system. They are a power source. And we want to be able to harness that and use it properly for the healing and the elevation of ourselves and others in our world.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for your time today. This is always so enlightening, just chatting with you, and just the work you're doing. I really honor it. I really, truly honor it. It's so needed right now. Where can people find you online, and then maybe direct them to your freebie?
All righty. So you can go to Seven Sisters Mystery School. And the 7 is written out, SEVEN, sevensistersmysteryschool.com. And right on that page, you'll find our free gift, Enter the Mystery Teachings. It's a media bundle that has a Sacred Heart activation meditation and 2 discussions, interviews that I do about Mother Mary and the sacred feminine, the power of the womb. I go deeper into it. That's just a little taster, and I have so many other conversations and free offerings on the website. I have a YouTube channel, Marguerite Rigoglioso, where there are many, many activating and empowering conversations. I've been teaching about sacred plant medicine, where as of this,
which was an integral piece.
We'll be in the midst of it. We'll be in the midst of it.
I know that you're really a voice for destigmatizing and decriminalizing and looking at really what is this earth medicine, what's happening. That I will say was a huge piece of my coming back into my body and understanding the deep programming and the societal constructs that were pining to bring me down.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much that needs to be cleared up. We need to exonerate these sacred plants and use them properly, right? So that they are tools for us to do our deep inner work, the expansion into our light bodies, our Christ Sophia light bodies, and the, walking around from that perspective, bringing the heaven into earth. Plants can help us with that when used properly, safely, with integrity, and I aim to do that. And people can book sessions with me and so forth. I work one-on-one with people, and I have an ongoing series of courses. So just sign up for our Sacred Sunday e-news, our newsletter, and you'll be kept abreast.
Yes. And if people just go to your website, the sevensistersmysteryschool.com, there's a plethora of like rabbit holes to go down and fun things to explore. So thank you again so much for your time. This was beautiful.
You're welcome, Cherie. Thank you for having me, and blessings to you on your work.
Thank you.